we'll give carry permits out, but everything's going to be a so-called sensitive place. So you can't, yes, you actually can't really carry a gun, even though you can get a permit.
I'm Ryan Gresham, and this is Gun Talk Nation. This Gun Talk Nation is brought to you by Vortex Optics, Hodgdon Powder, Guns and Gear, SDS Imports, Ballistic Advantage, Range Ready, and Ruger. All right, welcome into Gun Talk Nation. So speaking of lawyer jokes, I was always told that lawyers have the best jokes about lawyers.
100%, because we hate them.
You make fun of yourself.
Yes, it's a really self-loathing profession.
All right, man. Adam Kraut's here, Second Amendment Foundation. You are or were a lawyer.
Still am.
Yeah.
I think I'm still barred. They haven't taken that from me yet.
Yet.
You're
not trying hard enough. Then you're not. If you're not, on the edge of being disbarred.
There's rules of professional conduct, and when you're not paying people in the criminal world who are paying large sums of cash, it's a little easier to keep your license sometimes.
Oh, okay.
But then you can also do really dumb things and still lose your license. So
yeah. I just, you want to yell at somebody, I'm going to have you disbarred.
I feel like that's what the judges do.
Well, it's funny. So, yep, you're a lawyer, but now you're running one of the biggest gun rights groups out there.
Yes.
Which is somewhat lawyery because you guys do a ton of lawsuits, but I guess you also have to, order reams of paper, or I'm not sure, what other stuff they got you doing.
There are people who are more familiar with that part of the operation than I am.
Thank God.
Candidly. Yeah, thank God, because I would order the wrong type and probably the wrong quantity.
So give us an update, kind of what's been going on with you guys lately. I know you've been busy.
Sure.
Maybe not all of the cases, but what's the sexy stuff that people need to be aware of right now?
Well, actually, right before we walked in here to film this, as you know, we got a decision from the Fourth Circuit finally in our assault weapons ban challenge to Maryland. Maryland's assault weapons ban, I guess would be a better way to phrase that. We've been waiting on that for quite some time. That was at the Fourth Circuit before a panel where it sat for 13 months with no action.
Wow.
And then the Fourth Circuit decided one day that, we're going to hear this en banc, which means as a whole, as opposed to a 3-judge panel.
So how many judges is that then?
It varies circuit to circuit. I think it's typically 12. You'll have to forgive me. My memory's not perfect on that one, but some circuits have a few more judges than other when it's an en banc court. But essentially the en banc court establishes for the circuit in some instances what the law of the circuit is. So what can happen is you can have a 3-judge panel hear a case. They can come to a conclusion. So we'll use Maryland's assault weapons ban as this example, actually. Colby, the original challenge to it back in 2013, was heard in front of a 3-judge panel, and the 3-judge panel found that it was unconstitutional. Fourth Circuit said, hold my beer, we're going to do this en banc. Came back and said, no, actually, it's perfectly constitutional, and they created some test that was way away from what the Supreme Court had said it should be.
So they made up their own test to get to the result they would like to get to?
Correct, and it sounds like, from what I saw anyway, I've only kind of skimmed a little summary of the opinion, that they kind of did the same thing here. They found some language that they thought they could twist, it looks like, to get to the result they want to by saying, oh, well, Bruen said some things are more nuanced than others, so we should take a more nuanced approach to this. And of course, looking at dicta, which is language and an opinion that doesn't really matter, courts are going to play games and get to where they want to go, unfortunately, sometimes. I think people forget judges are people.
See, I was just about to say, Adam, I thought judges just say, what does the law say, and just go with that, right?
Well, it's their job, but they are people. They do have certain biases and personal beliefs and opinions, and sometimes that, unfortunately, gets interjected into what should be a relatively straightforward examination of, this is what the law says, or this is what the case law says, and as applied to this set of facts, this is the result I should come to. So that just came out. We're currently reviewing it. I'll be reading it later today.
And I don't know if we got to the results.
Sorry. Well, if it wasn't evident, the Fourth Circuit en banc said that this is constitutional.
An assault weapons ban, totally constitutional.
Yes. So we will be seeking cert from the Supreme Court. I do know that much based on the emails that have been going back and forth. This will be the third time we've sought cert in this case. We had it up on a cert petition while Bruen was pending. They held it when Bruen was decided. They granted They granted the petition. They vacated the Fourth Circuit's judgment and remanded it back down to that court for proceedings consistent with Bruen. We get that 13-month delay where there's no action other than we had argued and briefed it, and then they heard it on bonk, and now we're going back to the Supreme Court. But before that, about 2-3 months ago, we had filed, maybe actually it might have been a little more than that, earlier this year, we filed a petition for cert before judgment where we were asking the Supreme Court, just take it from the circuit court.
Oh, just take before we even get to their decision?
It's extremely rare. The court almost never does it, but every once in a while the court will do that. They, of course, denied it in our case because it's guns, I'm sure. So now we have a final appealable judgment from the Fourth Circuit. So we will seek cert, and hopefully the court will grant it.
So now they have a reason to look at it.
Potentially, yeah. It gives them a good chance to discuss what bearable arms are, because they've never defined the term. That's a term.
Variable arms?
Bearable, sorry.
Oh, bearable.
Yes, bearable.
Sorry.
Not variable.
Sorry.
Bearable arms. So that will give them an opportunity should they choose to. Of course, there are assault weapons ban cases pending in a couple of different circuits. So this is the first one post-Bruen that's final from a circuit court on the merits. Whether or not the Supreme Court will take this one or say, let's see what some other circuits come up with first, and then maybe we'll address it. It's always a possibility, unfortunately. Yeah. Guessing what they're going to do is there's people smarter than me doing it, and they get it wrong, so I'm not even going to try.
I mean, is this kind of like you have this case that goes before the Fourth Circuit, and there are certain courts where you kind of can look at it and go, yeah, perhaps we know which way this is going. It's like you go into the state legislature and you either know going in you have the votes or you don't, right? I mean, you're kind of like,
yes,
yeah, we're gonna do this whole dance. Most likely we're gonna lose it, and then we'll do what the next step is.
More or less, particularly in this instance. So the unfortunate thing is that where assault weapons bans are anyway, typically are in circuits that are not great circuits to be in for Second Amendment issues. The exception to that might be the Seventh Circuit, although on the assault weapons ban in particular, they've been terrible. Judge Easterday up there really has it out for gun stuff, and the case that's pending up there, which is, I think, back down at the trial court now, but it was up on an appeal from a preliminary injunction denial or grant. His language was very not in line with, Supreme Court precedent either.
Wow.
But, so you look in circuits like that, but when we look at other issues, we've been specifically looking in the Fifth Circuit, where Louisiana is in fact a part of the Fifth Circuit, and the Second Amendment decisions coming out of there. So far, I don't think the Fifth Circuit's found a gun law that they're like, yeah, you know what, this is actually constitutional. Rahimi came out of the Fifth Circuit. We have an 18 to 20 handgun purchase challenge that stemmed from Louisiana's district court in the Western District that's now up at the Fifth Circuit. It's Reese. So I would expect that one will likely find a favorable decision in the Fifth Circuit. There was another case that was remanded recently post Rahimi, which dealt with marijuana in the criminal context. That one was called Daniels. That came out of, it was a Fifth Circuit case, but that one came out of Texas as well, I believe. So yeah, we like everybody who goes into the court system that's in the public interest area tries to find courts that will have judges that are, for our context anyway, Republican appointees. Not always a guarantee, certainly not. Sometimes, there's horse trading that happens in the Senate, so a Republican may appoint the judge, but they may not be a Republican. It was part of getting some bill passed, something like that. And of course, just because somebody's Republican doesn't mean that they're going to automatically say, like, yes, this is an unconstitutional law. So everybody does it regardless of what the interest is, whether it's First Amendment, Second Amendment. And then, of course, there's cases that you just bring where they are because that's where it is. And you don't get a choice. I
mean, you guys typically have dozens of cases in the works at any time, right?
Yes.
Is there a particular issue that, I don't want to say like the issue du jour, but it's, a particular thing that there's traction on around for different cases?
So I think right now one of the biggest issue areas that we're dealing with is again post Bruen carry. Bruen was decided. New York responds almost immediately with a bill that says, "Okay, you want to play this? We'll do this. We'll give carry permits out, but everything's going to be a so-called sensitive place. So you can't. Yes, you actually can't really carry a gun, even though you can get a permit.
Right.
So New York was an offender with that. Jersey, Maryland, California, certain cities in California have started passing their own restrictions. So we have cases challenging all that. The other big issue post Bruen is, of course, the things that deal with permitting itself. The court said that shall issue regimes are, constitutional, at least on their face, but not to say that everything that goes into it is. So if there's long delays in getting these permits, or if there's excessive fees, things like that. So there's some more nuanced issues in the general carry area. 18 to 20 is another big area in our portfolio where we're challenging laws that deal with purchase and possession and carry. So we have two that deal with the federal ban on handgun purchases. So one is that race case I mentioned earlier. The other was a case out of West Virginia that I actually litigated for SAF prior to becoming the executive director. Started prior to me joining and then continued while I was still here. We did win that at the district court. That's on appeal up in the Fourth Circuit, and that's stayed pending the disposition of another case there. So I expect that we will probably ultimately not win in the Fourth Circuit on that one as well, unfortunately.
Sometimes you have to do that though, right? You have to just go, I know we're going to go in knowing it's unlikely we're going to get the decision we want, so that you can take that next step.
Sometimes. So one of the things that we also do here at the Second Amendment Foundation is we do offer assistance from time to time to people. So in this instance, that particular case was filed pro se by an 18-year-old. And he had reached out to us and we said, yeah, we'll absolutely take care of that for you, because also we don't want people making bad case law. Not that we want to be the ones who make bad case law, to be very clear about that, but we want to make sure that all of the issues are argued correctly and that, we can devote the time and resources and the expertise from having done it. We have over 55 active cases across the country right now, 18 to 20 carry, assault weapons, magazine capacity restrictions, even things as kind of out there as public housing. We have a case in Cortland, New York right now challenging a just flat ban on the possession of arms in public housing.
Wow.
Yeah.
You state you need assistance for your housing, therefore you don't have a Second Amendment.
That's kind of what they said.
Wow. I don't know if I want to say it. I mean, it feels perhaps
they felt that they could regulate it because of some of the people that end up in the area, not even necessarily the residents, but some of the people that pass through the area.
And then we would argue that, that's why you need the gun, because you live in an area that you need to protect yourself.
It's weird. It's like the need for self-defense actually rises when you're in areas that are not so great. Who would have thought? But yeah, so advertising restrictions in California is another state that are a fair body of our work is in. We have, I think, at least 17 active cases in the state of California challenging their various laws. And, one of the things that we hear all the time is, well, why even bother? I mean, there's any number of reasons, but you look at California, number one, it has a massive gun owning population. And I think a lot of people don't remember that. It's, one of the most, if not the most populated states in the country.
We can see like our stats, right? YouTube stats, podcast stats, radio stats.
California, right?
A lot of California listeners and viewers. Lots.
Yeah. And so, that's one of the reasons, but also a lot of these bad ideas are exported from California. Like they start there, it's a test bed, and
then cancer.
Yep. And then it finds its way east into all these states in between. So if we can put a nail in the coffin over there, it probably makes it, we can just rinse and repeat in other areas.
And politicians talk, right? Governors talk to each other, AGs talk to each other. And they're like, hey, what are you guys working on? Well, we have this creative idea to mess with gun owners. I love that idea.
But on top of that, then you have groups like Everytown, Brady, Giffords that are actually drafting legislation and working very closely with legislatures to pass laws.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, what they do is they offer free legal assistance to defend it.
To the state?
Yeah, or to the city government. So example, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Pittsburgh, we have a state preemption. I'm from Pennsylvania. So we have a state preemption law. Unfortunately, it doesn't have any teeth, so there's no right to attorney's fees or costs. But our preemption law has been interpreted by our Supreme Court to mean that municipalities can't create their own laws that deal with the regulation of firearms in any number of capacities, one of which is straight up possession or transfer. And Pittsburgh came out with its own assault weapons ban, and something to do with magazines. At this point, it's been a number of years and still being litigated. But that came out of Everytown, and then Everytown, like, here, we'll give you free legal counsel to fight it. So now we have to fund it, whether it's us as individuals, as donating to groups in Pennsylvania as Pennsylvanians on the one hand, and then like some of our tax dollars are also fighting against us, because while Everytown is still handling a bunch of it, like the state, the legislature and the solicitors are still involved. So
they're using tax dollars.
Yeah. And but that's true everywhere. Anytime that you're fighting an unconstitutional law, your tax dollars at some point are probably going to defend it. And then you personally may be going out of pocket to give to a group that is challenging the law.
Right.
And the worst part is, even if you win, there's particularly in federal actions, there is a right to fees and costs if you prevail. But at the end of the day, you're self-funding a fight against yourself in some ways. It's just this, there's no incentive for politicians not to engage in it, because they're not personally liable at the end of the day.
Right.
So they can just pass things and like, it was unconstitutional. That sucks, I guess. We'll try again, water it down a little bit and see what we can get to stick this time.
Exactly. Well, that's a perfect segue. So let's take a quick break. After the break, we're going to talk about how listeners can help you guys with this.
Sure.
Ruger, one of the popular ones, one of the kind of cool, fun ones they're doing is the Ruger LC Charger. It's chambered in 5.7 by 28, low recoiling cartridge, available in an array of options for target shooting, small game, personal defense. It's kind of a large format pistol, and you kind of have to see it to understand it, but it's a 10.3 inch barrel. So let that sink in for a second. Yes, it's a threaded barrel. Yes, they have a CNC milled handguard that works with M-Lock, full-length pick rail on top for optics. Just a fun, cool gun. The whole thing only weighs 66 ounces. So go check it out over at Ruger.com. Tune in to watch the new season of Guns and Gear on air now on Outdoor Channel and Sportsman Channel, or you can find it online. Guns and Gear brings viewers the newest innovations throughout the firearms industry. New guns, new gear, optics, ammo, all that stuff. Go check it out. Outdoor Channel, Sportsman Channel, and of course, online. TSOS USA is quickly becoming a household name. Tons of value in these guns. The one I'm looking at on the website is the 1911 Night Stalker Double Stack SF 9mm. Long name. But yeah, it's a double stack 1911 in 9mm, and the MSRP is $959, which is unbelievable. It also has a very cool gray finish on it that just has a great look to it. Of course, double stack means high capacity, but they have a reputation for quality and value in TSOS 1911s. It also has a polymer grip module, 25 lines per inch checkering on the front and rear, molded texture with aluminum removable magazine well. So tons of extra features in this one. Go check them out. SDS Imports, or just look up TSOS, TISAS, and you'll learn more. All right. So Adam, obviously Second Amendment Foundation, you guys are a membership group.
Yes.
55 cases in the works. These are not inexpensive.
Nothing's free.
I mean, I can't imagine the monthly note on this stuff is got to be crazy. How do people get involved? How do they help? I mean, I think that anyone listening to this is like, okay. And hopefully if you're listening to this, you're thinking, oh, I get it. It's not just, well, screw California. If you don't like it, move out of California. Well, you probably actually want SAF to win in California, even if you don't live there.
We want to win everywhere. Because at the end of the day, the Second Amendment applies to all Americans equally, or it should. So even if an individual doesn't live in a state, like I want Californians to have the same freedoms I do. And then there's some things that I can't do that I think should be able to be done that I would like for them and everyone else to have too. So we are a membership-based organization. One of the ways people can help is by joining as a member. There's a small fee that's associated with that, but that helps fund our body of work.
Yeah.
The other is through donations. Donations obviously drive a great deal of our financial ability to be able to do this. And then on top of that, I think one of the other things is just, go look at what we're doing. And if you like it, tell your friends, tell them to go check us out. Share our stuff on social media. Let the world know that we're out here doing this. We've been around for 50 years. We've had a lot of success during that time. McDonald versus City of Chicago, the second major Supreme Court decision was a SAF case. We're back in front of the Supreme Court this term with a challenge. We filed a motion to intervene in an existing case that challenged ATF's framer receiver rule. So we're back up in a case in front of the Supreme Court that'll be argued in October. So it'll be our second trip to the Supreme Court, and we're looking to have a number more as we can get them here.
When do you have an idea when you'll be there?
So the argument, I think, is October 9th, if I remember the date off the top of my head. And then we would expect a decision sometime next year.
It's usually likely, early summer kind of thing.
June.
Yeah. Okay.
That time frame.
So, I mean, I don't know if can you talk to people to understand like what the cost associated with this stuff is?
I can try.
I mean, like to just give them a perspective of this.
I mean, it varies, but I typically ballpark numbers. I tell people that generally in the district court, you're looking at anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 being expended, and there's a whole different number of factors that drive costs on things. Sometimes cases are more streamlined than others. Sometimes there's not as much discovery, things like that. But you're looking at $50,000 to $100,000 just for the trial court. Then you have the appeals process. And as we were talking about at the very beginning, you can go on appeal and just go before a 3-judge panel. You're probably looking at, again, another like 50 to 100 easily. If it goes on bonk, then you're just doing the same thing again. And then Supreme Court stuff, it's not cheap to get good counsel for Supreme Court work. In my time, having seen what people charge for just cert petitions, a petition itself could be 50 to 100.
I imagine if you're going into that, you're going to the Super Bowl. You're not like wanting the rookie backup quarterback kind of guy. You're like, we need the big guns, so to speak.
No, and we're very fortunate that we have a stable of attorneys we work with throughout. We've worked with throughout the years, and then throughout specific either issue areas or states that we turn to constantly. And then we have a core group of attorneys we use for our appellate work as well. And the trial counsel gets to come along for the ride, but certainly when we're looking at Supreme Court stuff, we're looking at people who have experience in front of the Supreme Court because we want people who know how to present something to the justices in order to make the most of the opportunity should we be there arguing the case itself.
I will say, and I'm not a legal eagle. I'm not a lawyer or anything, but even the remedial understanding I have of it, listening or watching, depending on, a Supreme Court case, and then even reading a decision is for the gun stuff is fascinating. It's interesting to see where their head's at on things and the questions they ask kind of gives you like, oh, because it's so easy for us in the gun world. I'm a gun owner. I love guns. All my friends, my whole Facebook feed is gun rights stuff. Yeah. And you're in this little echo chamber. We, like I was saying earlier, we curate our own little media experiences and you don't hear other sides or what other people are thinking about this stuff. Sure. And I think those or having those conversations outside to go, this is what people are thinking or what they think they know.
Well, and a lot of times judges or justices at the Supreme Court, the questions they're asking isn't necessarily for an answer for themselves. It's to educate someone else on the bench.
Oh, sure.
So they're using it as a mechanism to get information to another justice that's sitting there. And those arguments, I mean, you're dealing with some very intelligent people. Like I said before, there are people who are way smarter than I trying to predict what the Supreme Court will do. And that's why we want to make sure that if we get the opportunity to be in front of the Supreme Court, we have the best counsel possible because we want to win. Yeah. That's the ultimate goal here is to win.
Thinking about fundraising and supporting what you guys do, I know that you do beyond just the members. Mm-hmm. I mean, somebody listening to this may say, well, I can join or I am joined, but there's only so much I can do. I mean, you guys are reaching out to corporate members. I know you work with a bunch of companies in the industry. Yep. You have, I don't know if this is announced yet. You're kind of working on some special fundraiser things with like special guns and stuff.
So yeah, there's a couple of things. So as I mentioned earlier, it's our 50th anniversary. In that vein, we're working with American Legacy Firearms. They've done a special edition Henry lever action for us, of which I think there's 50 available. And then they're also doing some SIG handguns as well. But one of the other things that we are doing is through our partnership with SIG, we've been put in touch with Lipsies, and SIG and Lipsies created a program where they have 3 different SIG models that are in a limited edition color that's a Lipsies exclusive. And SIG and Lipsies decided that they would donate a portion of proceeds from the sale of every one of those firearms to a Second Amendment organization. They just started the program, and they decided as the inaugural recipient, it would be the Second Amendment Foundation. So, yeah. So,
awesome.
Yep.
So, I mean, so somebody listening to this, if they say, okay, I want to support you guys, I can buy a unique gun. This is an exclusive kind of unique gun that there's only limited edition. And Lipsies, if you're not familiar, they're a gun distributor. They are the ones who basically sell all the guns to the gun dealers. So if you want to see the gun, I imagine it's probably on their website. Lipsiesguns.com is kind of the consumer side of things. If you want to buy it, you can't buy it from Lipsies, but you can buy it from your dealer.
But you can go to your dealer and say, hey, order this from Lipsies for me.
And I promise you, your dealer knows who Lipsies is, and they'll go, no problem. It'll be here in 48 hours. Right. So, cool deal. So there's a special edition Henry guns, and there's a special edition SIG guns.
Yeah. So the American Legacy Firearms is separate from the Lipsies deal. Those are specially engraved and really uniquely collector's guns. But if you're looking for a new range gun or even a carry gun, the Lipsies guns are going to be what you're looking for. And I myself have bought Lipsies exclusives over the years, so I'm familiar with it, and they are able to get some pretty cool guns that no one else can get just based on the size they are and the volume they move. So they're able to come up with some neat packages for people. I believe one of them is a 365 macro. Don't quote me on that. You'll have to look at their website, but it is in tan, and I think it has a comp, and I don't believe that is available in another.
That's not a gun that you could normally get from SIG. It's
so if you already have a black 365 and you want to add a different color.
Yeah, I mean,
I know how that goes.
We don't probably, if you're listening to this podcast, we don't have give you like a whole lot of reasons to buy another gun. Yeah. But there you go. You say, look, it's for a good cause.
Sure. I mean, at the very least, yes, it's for a good cause, and plus you get something cool to go to the range with.
Stag Arms, known for AR-15s, and especially they've got regular ones, and they have left-handed AR-15s, which I appreciate. But did you also know they have a lifetime transferable warranty? No matter what Stag rifle's in your hands, it holds their lifetime warranty. It's also 100% American made. The rifles and components are made right here in the USA, and they have an infinite shot barrel guarantee. If you shoot out the barrel on one of the Stag rifles, they will replace it free of charge. That's standing behind your product. Go learn more over at stagarms.com. RangeReadyStudios.com is where you go to find out about our classes that we're putting on here at the Gun Talk headquarters. And we've got a couple that are sold out recently, but we have more coming. So what you need to do is go over there, sign up for the email alerts, and you'll be the first to find out about our new class schedule coming in the fall. RangeReadyStudios.com. You know that Silencer Central makes it easy to buy silencers, but they also have their whole line of Banish suppressors, and the newest one is the Banish Speed K TI. TI for titanium. Extremely lightweight and compact. This is a really cool, ultra-compact 223 556 dedicated silencer. Weighs only 8.6 ounces. It's 4 inches long, and it has controlled flow technology. We have used this on the range. We've been impressed at how light it is. Doesn't change the weight and balance of the gun, and also still very quiet. The Banish Speed K TI from Silencer Central. I got a question for you.
Okay.
We hear about rich, billionaires, actors, musicians. A lot of them tend to be kind of liberal leaning, perhaps, and we'll get complaints from like audience that says, well, yeah, all these famous people supporting these liberal causes or whatever. I don't know if you guys can name names or whatever, but I mean, but there are conservative, very successful people that are supporting the cause, right? I mean, are you guys working with some of those folks?
I won't name names. Yes, either directly they've donated to us. A lot of them don't want to be public about for any number of reasons, including the industries that they're in. It could get them blackballed, and that would be the end of their careers. But one of the ways that people do give money is through donor advised funds. So there are foundations that exist where they can donate money to. And of course, depending upon what the issue is and where you sit politically, like this is where the dark money comes in. And I'm using air quotes if you're listening to this on a podcast by chance.
Now everyone's looking up dark money.
Yeah, you'll see it. I'm sure it's all over the news, particularly given now it's an election cycle. But what a donor advised fund is essentially is that it allows somebody to donate a somewhat significant amount of money. They're able to get the tax write-off that year, and then they can tell the DAF that, hey, I want, X amount of dollars over this period of time given to these organization or this particular organization. Now, there's nothing that requires the DAF to do that, but generally they will listen to what the donor wants and then, send the money that way. So that's another way that sometimes we don't know who the person is, but there's a somewhat of a significant donation that comes in through a donor advised fund.
Sort of somewhat anonymous kind of chunk that comes in.
Yeah, and certainly, like, I just talked about dark money, like they exist on the liberal side of things too.
Sure.
It's not an uncommon thing. There's nothing unethical about it, but it is another way that people, of stature do give money and kind of don't have to tell the world that they're giving money to causes they believe in, regardless of what side of the political aisle it may be on.
So if you're a business owner, had a good year, you need to figure out the tax situation.
Yeah.
This could be an option.
Yeah. Donor advised fund could be an option. And of course we are a 501c3. So all donations directly to us are tax deductible.
Awesome.
So you could just give straight to us. Awesome.
All right. Gun question.
Gun answer.
What last gun you bought, last gun you shot? I know you're a gun guy in addition to being a scumbag lawyer. I mean,
that's,
come on.
That's very flattering that I'm a gun guy and not just some lawyer who's like, I think Second Amendment issues or something.
That's interesting.
So I actually just purchased a SIG XM7 SBR that arrived at my dealer last week, and I did the silencer shop thing Saturday. So I'm excited for that.
And the SBRs are a quick turnaround as well as silencers these days, right?
Yeah, allegedly. So I did it on a trust, which is where my
takes
NFA
a little bit
stuff.
longer.
Yeah. The last time I did 2 silencers earlier this year, I think in February, and they cleared sometime in June. I had some dead air cans that finally came through. But so that was the last gun I bought. Before that, it had probably been maybe like 6 months to a year. I haven't gotten out shooting as much as I would like.
Being in charge of staff.
The most shooting I've been able to do really was there's a range that was kind of local to me that was doing night vision shoots. So whenever I would have a free Saturday night, I try to get up there and go shoot at night with those guys.
All right, so this is interesting because this is kind of an area I've done a good amount of night vision stuff and thermal stuff, but I kind of gotten into, okay, I think I want to set up my own setup. Yeah. Do I want an IR laser?
Yes.
Do I want to run it,
You want dual tubes?
Do I want dual tubes?
Oh, you want duals?
Do I want a thermal and a night vision? What do I want, Adam?
Well,
tell me.
All right. I'm not a night vision expert. I just want to be very clear about that. But I have dabbled in it, and I've been fortunate enough to have friends in the industry who are, in fact, night vision experts. I can tell you, having used a PVS 14 and then playing with a friend's set of dual tubes, that dual tubes are far and away better, at least anecdotally. Can you see at night with a single tube? Absolutely. Can you fight at night? 100%. But if you can afford dual tubes, I would say get dual tubes. I have DT-NBSs. That's just what I ended up buying. At the time, they had very high spec tubes in them. Mm-hmm. Now, a couple months after getting them, I see L3s just kind of putting those out as the run of the mill. I'm like, okay, well, is what it is. IR lasers are cool. Should absolutely have one of those on your gun. Whether you use it all the time or not, it's a different story. I have a Maul on my gun, a B. Myers Maul. Night vision is fun. It's definitely a different way to go shooting. But at the same time, realistically, like the best shooting I can do is going to the range and practicing with my carry gun, because that's what I carry all the time. So being proficient with that would probably be the best thing for me.
Yeah. But look, call it LARPing, call it whatever you want. It's super fun.
It's absolutely
to get all the gear out.
Yeah. It's a good time. It doesn't have to be LARPing. I mean, you are in fact training. Whether or not you're using it for anything or not is a different story. But getting that time, because walking around with night vision is a very different experience than just using your eyes. Understanding how things work. being able to manipulate stuff in the dark. Reloading guns in the pitch black is a lot different when you can't see where the mag well is. So there's a lot of things that are different in that regard for sure.
And the first time you do it probably shouldn't be when you know, things are bad.
Well, it's like everything, right? Yeah. I mean, it's like, well, it's no different than the person who comes into the gun store and buys their gun and then they tuck it under their bed for that rainy day. Well, great. You got the tool, but do you have any of the skills to actually employ it in, you know, a correct manner? And that's where, you know, a lot of, when I worked behind a counter, I would always encourage new gun owners, like, hey, go take a class, go learn how this thing works, because it's not just point and click.
Like an entire day class, an entire 2 days or 3 days. I mean, I know that
take several
as a place to start. Okay, fine. As a place to start, you buy your first gun and you go do the 1 hour free intro class that the gun range / store gives you. Cool. But like, you got to go beyond that. I mean, even hell, driving a car when you're 16 years old, they give you more than 1 or 2 hours of training, right?
No, it's exactly like that. And that kind of stuff, I think, the perception on training, I think generally within the community has shifted. It seems that that's more encouraged. And then I guess particularly given that you had a 20-year war being fought, you have a lot more people kind of placing an emphasis on the need for it. Prior to, you know, what things were like 20 years ago, before I was into guns or even really old enough to do a lot of stuff, I have no idea. But it seems like to me anyway that training is more readily available. Quality training is more readily available to the masses, and that we should as a community encourage newcomers to just get some, you know, basic familiarity besides just, I know how to load this and I can stand and shoot a piece of paper that's 7 yards away and put, you know, holes that look like a shotgun pattern in it.
Right. Discharging a firearm in a safe direction. I mean, that's one way to go, but maybe there's a next level.
When things stop working and you're under pressure, you know, shooting competitively. I shot USPSA for a couple of years, never seriously, and I was not good, but I figured it was another way to get out. And this was when I was younger, but get out and train with my carry gun. And even the fake pressure of a competition where you get to walk through and say, okay, well, I know I have to go to this target, that target, this many rounds, reload here. The buzzer goes off, your mag falls out of your gun because you didn't seat it all the way, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, whoa, and you got to work through it. It becomes very much a thinking man's game too, or thinking woman's, depending upon.
Yeah. Working in there, you're under the time pressure. And even though it's just make-believe time stuff, it's still
stress inoculation.
Oh, it's great. It's great for that. Thanks for being on with us, man.
Oh, I appreciate you having me.
Thanks for the updates, you guys. Second Amendment Foundation, they're doing work out there. It costs money. You need to go support them. That's it for us. We'll see you next time on Gun Talk Nation.